Welcome back. Today we're diving deep into the sense of agency.
Fascinating.
It really is. It's something we all experience but don't always think about.
It's fundamental. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we act. Really, it shapes how we understand who we are.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being in control, of knowing that you're the one making choices, taking action.
Exactly. The awareness that you're not just reacting, but actually initiating, driving your own life.
It's interesting, though, because while we feel this sense of agency, there's a lot going on beneath the surface, both scientifically and philosophically.
Absolutely. I mean, just think back to philosophers like Descartes.
Oh, right. I think, therefore I am.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
all about self-awareness, right? And that's a core component of agency.
Because if you're aware of your own thoughts, you're aware of your ability to make choices.
Precisely. And that's what separates us from, well, from things that don't have that capacity.
And as we've learned more about the brain, neuroscience has actually started to pinpoint where this sense of self and agency might be happening,
Yeah, research points to areas like the prefrontal cortex.
which is involved in planning and decision-making.
All the things that feed into that feeling of I'm in control.
So it's not just some abstract idea, it's grounded in the physical workings of our brains.
Exactly. And this is where things get even more interesting. Have you heard of readiness potential?
Rings a bell, but refresh my memory.
Well, it's this burst of brain activity that they can detect even before we consciously decide to move.
You're saying our brains might be preparing for action before we even know we're going to act.
It seems that way. And it really throws a wrench into the whole debate about free will versus determinism.
Because if our brains are already prepping for an action, how much choice do we really have?
That's the million-dollar question. And while neuroscience gives us a peek into the mechanics, it doesn't solve the philosophical puzzle.
So the debate rages on. But what we do know is that our sense of agency isn't solely determined by biology.
Right. Environment and social factors play a huge role.
Like our upbringing, our culture.
Think about it. If you're raised in an environment that encourages independence, you're more likely to develop a strong sense of agency.
Because you're constantly being told you have the power to make choices.
Exactly. But if you're in an environment where everything is decided for you, that sense of agency can be stifled.
It makes you wonder how much of our sense of agency is shaped by the world around us.
Oh, definitely. It's not a fixed thing. It can fluctuate depending on our experiences and the situations we're in.
Which brings us to the big question. Why does this even matter? Why is it so important to understand this feeling of agency, or the lack of it?
Because it impacts everything, our well-being, our motivation, even our mental health.
So it's not just some theoretical concept, it has real-world consequences.
Absolutely. Having a strong sense of agency is linked to all sorts of benefits. Like, it empowers us to set goals.
Because we believe we can actually achieve them.
Exactly. And when we feel in control, we're more likely to take responsibility for our actions.
We own our successes and learn from our failures.
Right. And that accountability is crucial for growth.
So agency isn't just about feeling good, it's about taking charge and shaping your own life.
And maybe most importantly, it's tied to purpose.
That feeling of contributing to something bigger than yourself.
When you recognize the impact of your actions, you find more meaning in life.
It gives you a reason to get up in the morning and strive for something.
Exactly. And it fuels your motivation to keep going, even when things get tough.
This really highlights why nurturing that sense of agency is so important. But what happens when it starts to slip away?
That's when you start to see the other side of the coin. When your sense of agency diminishes, it can be a slippery slope.
You feel powerless, like you're trapped in your circumstances.
And that feeling of helplessness can be a breeding ground for things like depression and anxiety.
It makes sense. If you feel like nothing you do matters, why even bother trying?
That's the danger. And it can create a vicious cycle.
You feel powerless, so you do less, which makes you feel even more powerless.
Exactly. And that's why therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, focus on restoring that sense of agency.
Helping people recognize that they do have choices, that they can make a difference.
It's about breaking those negative thought patterns and encouraging action.
So empowering people to reclaim control over their lives.
Precisely. And it's not just traditional therapy either. New technologies like virtual reality are giving us a whole new perspective on agency.
VR, how does that tie in?
Well, they found that by manipulating body representation in VR, they can actually alter someone's sense of agency.
Wait, so by changing how you perceive your body in a virtual world, They can change how you experience your own actions.
It's pretty wild, right?
That's amazing. So even something as seemingly abstract as agency can be explored and even manipulated through technology.
It really highlights the complexity of this concept.
And it makes you wonder, with all this talk of technology, what about artificial intelligence? Can machines develop a sense of agency?
Now, that's a question that really pushes the boundaries of what we know.
So, artificial intelligence. Can machines really develop a sense of agency?
It's a tough question. I mean, it makes us re-examine what agency actually means.
Because we usually associate it with consciousness.
Yeah, with that awareness of self, with having desires and intentions.
Which AI, at least as we know, it doesn't have.
Right. But then you look at something like a self-driving car,
And it's making decisions in real time, reacting to the environment.
navigating traffic, avoiding obstacles, even making split-second choices.
So in a way, it's acting independently.
But it's all based on the parameters set by its programmers, right?
So is it really making choices or just following instructions?
That's the debate. But as AI systems get more sophisticated,
Learning from massive amounts of data.
adapting to new situations.
That line between programmed instructions and independent action starts to blur a little.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so thought-provoking. Are we heading toward a future where AI develops some form of agency that we don't even fully grasp yet?
It's a mind-bending concept. But for now, maybe we should shift gears a bit.
Back to humans.
Yeah. Because while pondering the future of AI is fascinating, it's equally important to focus on ourselves, on how we can cultivate our own sense of agency in the here and now.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, having a strong sense of agency leads to a more fulfilling, more meaningful life.
And it's not something we're stuck with, right? We can actually take steps to strengthen it.
That's the good news. It's not fixed. It's something we can develop and nurture.
So what are some practical things our listeners can do to boost their sense of agency?
Well, one of the most powerful tools is setting clear goals.
Because when you set a goal, you're taking control of your direction, deciding where you want to go.
You're not just drifting along, you're actively shaping your path.
But it's important to make those goals realistic, right?
Absolutely. Setting yourself up for constant failure just reinforces that feeling of powerlessness.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between challenge and attainability.
And breaking down big goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by a massive task, you focus on making progress one step at a time.
And each step you complete reinforces your sense of agency.
You see tangible evidence of your ability to make things happen.
Building momentum, boosting confidence, it's a positive feedback loop.
So goals are a great starting point. What else can people do?
Well, mindfulness can be a powerful tool as well.
Mindfulness has become such a buzzword. How does it relate to agency?
Think about it. Mindfulness is all about being present.
Paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your actions.
Without judgment. And that heightened awareness of your internal state helps you become more conscious of the choices you're making.
So it strengthens that connection between intention and action.
Exactly. The more mindful you are, the less you're operating on autopilot, just reacting to things.
You become more deliberate, more intentional in your choices.
Which reinforces your sense of control. You're not just being swept along, you're steering the ship.
That makes a lot of sense. Any other strategies you recommend?
Seeking feedback can be really valuable, even though it might seem counterintuitive.
Feedback. How does that help with agency?
Well, we all have blind spots, right? We don't always see ourselves clearly.
So getting constructive feedback from others can help us see things from a different perspective.
Identify areas where we can improve, make more informed decisions.
So it's about using that feedback as a tool for growth, not taking it personally.
Exactly. And that increased self-awareness is a key component of agency. The better you understand yourself, the better choices you can make.
Choices that are aligned with your values, your goals.
It's all interconnected. Nurturing agency is really a journey of self-discovery.
And while there's no one-size-fits-all approach, these strategies give us a good starting point.
Tools to help us navigate that journey more effectively.
So, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it's important to remember that understanding and strengthening our sense of agency isn't just about personal growth.
It's about navigating the world around us with more intention and purpose.
In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, a strong sense of agency can be a powerful anchor.
A reminder that we do have a role to play in shaping our own destinies, even amidst uncertainty.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something fundamental.
What's that?
Why does understanding this concept of agency even matter? Why should our listeners care?
It gets to the core of what it means to be human. It's about recognizing that we have the power to make choices.
To take action, to shape our own lives and the world around us.
Exactly. It's that understanding that separates us from being passive bystanders and makes us active participants in our own stories.
And in a world that often feels increasingly complex and out of control.
That recognition, that feeling of agency, can be incredibly empowering.
Because even when we can't control everything that happens to us,
We still have the power to choose how we respond, how we move forward.
and with that power comes responsibility.
Absolutely. As we cultivate our sense of agency, we also cultivate our sense of accountability.
We become more aware of the impact our choices have, both on ourselves and those around us.
It's a delicate balance, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Acknowledging our own agency while also recognizing that we're not all powerful.
There are limits to our control, things we can influence and things we can't.
And finding that balance, that's really the key takeaway here.
Agency isn't about having absolute control over everything.
It's about understanding where our influence lies and making conscious, deliberate choices within that sphere.
It's about accepting the inherent uncertainty of life while still striving to make a meaningful impact within the realm of what we can affect.
And remembering that our sense of agency isn't fixed.
It's something we can continue to develop to strengthen through our actions and our mindset.
So as we conclude this deep dive into the sense of agency, I'd like to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. In a world full of both opportunities and limitations, how can we best navigate that interplay between exercising our agency and accepting the things we cannot control?
It's a question worth reflecting on, and one that each of us must grapple with in our own unique way.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to further cultivate your own sense of agency. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep growing.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.